All right, welcome again to Social Distillation, the submarine still of the internet, where we attempt to drop the beat and pour white lightning straight onto your brain. What are we talking about today, Samo?
We got our watching the show notes here. Episode 7, so second to last one of this season, and it's all Perrin, which I actually for some reason I just felt like I expected that uh because of the way book 4 ends. And it
Mm-hmm.
is as we just said off air, it is good that they're doing more like the book, but it's still kind of meh. But the
Yeah,
sad thing is meh is so much better than the first two seasons.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and part of that problem is what we've been ranting about this whole time, which is that there's a reason. The whole reason we started yet another reread of the books after the first season is we're not just being you ruined the source material. Where's Tom Bombadil? No, we keep referring to the source material because the source material objectively works because it
Mhm.
has sold hundreds of millions of copies.
Well, and I
Okay.
think I think my biggest complaint about this season is directly related to the choice to go to book 4 and skip book 3.
I thought they I thought they were going to do a better job of combining the two. After the first couple of episodes, I was like, okay, I think I see where they're going here and how they're going to combine the two. But no, they've just completely thrown book three out the window.
Well, they had some things in season 2, like Perrin saving Avienda was obviously him saving Gaul in the books.
Yeah,
They had
yeah.
they did some of that. But then it's obvious that they're going to go back to, they have to go to the Stone of Tyr. They've been even talking about it. It's not
They
like,
referenced it.
yeah,
Yeah.
they referenced that. And my problem is they said, oh, for television reasons, it was better to do 4 before
Hmm.
3. But I don't think so. I don't think so at all, because a lot of the things that they had to do because they skipped 3 make it less good TV.
Well,
Because as we'll see in some of
yes.
these scenes, I'm like, yeah, that was set up in book 3, but you skipped that, and now it's just kind
Hmm.
of there.
As we were texting last night, basically every good thing we have to say about this episode has an asterisk by it
Hmm.
because it's okay. Well, that was a good representation of that scene from the book, but it was utterly hollow.
Hmm.
Okay. It's, at the risk of offending more fans who probably aren't here anyway by making more sex references, it was if you have all climax or if you get to the climax without any foreplay, someone's not going to be satisfied. Okay. Is uh when whenever it was a couple months ago when we talked about Candace Horvath on trigonometry. And one of the things we didn't get to that I wanted to, and we'll have to do like a whole sexy time with Sam episode on sometime,
Hmm.
is one of the things I really like because I spent a lot of time complaining about things she said. But one of the things she says there, and she has said before that I really like is the phrase all day foreplay,
Hmm.
because that's how the female mind works. Well, there we are already canceled because a lot of our rants here are about the lack
Well,
of
I can give the standard disclaimer:
gender
overlapping bell curves and all of that.
overlapping bell curves and all that thing. But statistically, well, who knows what it is now because kids these days. But statistically,
It's still
something,
there because they're trying to do the She-Hulk version, and it's not working.
well, yeah, but no, something like 80% of all visual porn magazines and videos is consumed by males. That is inversed with books.
Hmm.
All those, cheesy shirtless dude cover, those are all porn. But it is imaginative. It is literary. That is 80% female because that's all day foreplay. That is the buildup.
Well, and
There's
even if someone is not too kind of uh, against doing an experiment like this, go on to one of the video sites, one of the free video sites, and type in the search "popular with women" and see what comes up. It's
okay.
different. It's different. It's It's your they're like giving each other a massage for an hour before anything happens, and all kinds of stuff like that. And it's a lot classier. The cinematography is better. All of these things because it is just pulling you in with multiple stimulations. You have to have good camera work. You have to have good music. You have to have that long buildup before the act happens. The act's really short because the buildup was so long, and it just, yeah, that's just do that if you don't have anything against going on those sites. If you do, obviously don't constrain your morals, but you'll be shocked to see what comes up because it's not what comes up on the first page when you just type in the .com. It's
And even with guys as simple as we are, there are still boxes that need to be checked along the way,
mhm.
both in this analogy and with storytelling. Take a very simple, I've talked before about how I think Predator is almost a perfect movie. Not because it's The Godfather, but because it checks these boxes. It builds on things. There's no building here.
Mhm.
So it's just
Yeah.
yeah, contrary to that. So I've some of the people, I listen to the uh FNT guys were ranting about Minecraft and how it's just such mindless slop, and yet people are going to see it.
Well, so is Minecraft.
And yeah, apparently people are going to see it because it's memeable. I don't know what that means, but whatever. There's a whole subculture, whatever. But contrast that with the Sonic movie,
Well,
okay?
I'll tell you what memeable is. Memeable means they're what you complain about all the time, which means there are
Mm,
scenes that will stick out. Because when we think about memeable, again, going away from the Dawkins definition, when we think about memeable in the internet area, it's something that popped out and just people ran with. The Doge dog, the you know
mm,
the side eye girl, all of these things, they're memeable because it's a funny moment. It's a good moment that you can
mm.
attach a lot of things to. Whereas, so we probably have moments in the movie where, if in context to the movie, it's like, okay, whatever, but it's something that could be a context in any movie because
Yeah.
that's what makes it memeable because you can add context to it that wasn't there in the original version of it.
Whereas stories that work have story. So I think I mentioned this before, but a little while ago, I turned on when my uh, granddaughter was visiting, I turned on the Sonic movie mostly just to distract her. And then I was the one that ended up getting distracted. And I sat there with her and we watched the whole thing because it has a story. And one of the meta stories of it is, remember when the images of Sonic were first released and people were, what the hell is this? This is
Hmm.
nightmare fuel. It's terrible. This is nothing what he looks like in the, and Sony actually listened. Sony
Hmm.
slash Paramount actually listened and said, hold on a second, we'll fix this. But that wouldn't have been enough if there hadn't been some actual heart. It is a genuinely good family movie. Like if you have an older kid, so you wouldn't care. But if you have younger kids and you want something to watch with them, the Sonic movies are great fun and also great
Well, when
stories.
my niece is over, we look for something family friendly like that. Like we watched the Despicable Me the last time she was here.
Hmm.
So, we do look for something like that. So I'll put it on the list if it is that good. Uh, let's get to the show though, because
Yeah.
we've spent 15 minutes of screen time ranting about how other things are better. Uh,
Well, one of the credit where it's due, I will give it, is one of the things I grumbled about in the first season was how Emmons Field doesn't look like Emmons Field and the Two Rivers doesn't look like the Two Rivers because
mhm,
they're mountain people, because that's where the filming location is. But they made it work and they used the terrain to adjust the story in a
mhm.
way that actually made sense. And I was like, oh, hey, good for you.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, and I made a note. This is for later, but it's relevant to the opening scene. Even changing it to having the mountain pass there instead of
Uh-huh.
the act. I mean, it's field. It's supposed to be a field, right?
Yeah.
Having that actually, I think was a good decision by the showrunners and the producers because they don't have the expansive cast.
Hmm.
It enabled them to condense it down to a smaller thing
Hmm.
by having it funnel through a mountain pass.
Yeah. Yeah. So they did well with what they had in that regard. Um,
Of course, then they randomly threw in a back door that was open, which was a field.
we never do, yeah, we never do figure out that they leave that part fuzzy of, well, wait a
Well,
minute,
not only is it
what's
fuzzy,
going on
it
back
was
there?
counter because they spent time talking about how there was no other entrance.
Yes.
And then all of a sudden there's another entrance without any explanation. So that was one of the big X's I put is where did this
Hmm.
opening come from that they said didn't exist?
Hmm.
It
Yeah, we'll
wasn't,
get to there in a
I was
second.
expecting them to have the back way through where uh the Tinkers were supposed to, because Peyton Fane told them or something. I was expecting them to have the
Mm.
back way, but it wasn't. It was a different place. So,
Yeah. Well, speaking of Tinkers, there was a that was another good of, I rewatching season one, I was annoyed of where's Ray and why is Ilya getting all the lines, but she's a darn good actress.
yeah,
And
she was good. Yeah.
the scene with her and Aram is good. It's very emotional. Um and that actually was set up. Golly gee, look what happens when we spend time with characters. Now, it has been a while. Luckily, you have the recap to remind you, oh, yeah, those people from season one. But we spent a couple of episodes with them, as we should have, with Perrin and Egwene getting to know them. And so it works because we know who these people are.
Hmm.
And to some degree, at least, we care about them.
Yeah. The only thing I didn't like about that scene was they made the Two Rivers people dumb. They made them the villagers from Holy
Yeah.
Grail that are like, what also floats? Tiny rocks. They're yelling Trollocs, Trollocs when the when the Tinkers are coming up, and it's like, dude, you do have eyes.
Yes, you
Yeah,
have
it
eyeballs.
you have
That
eyeballs. You
part,
could,
that is where the mountain pass fell apart because, of course, in the books, it's Perrin's keen eyes that can see out there and see way out in the distance. Wait a minute, those are people.
mm-hmm,
But it's even worse here because they still have their wagons, which
mm-hmm.
it would have been simple enough to just not have the wagons, which they wouldn't because they were attacked and they had to run away.
Yeah, they didn't just get the wagons
And it would
and
have set
lumber
up
off. Yeah.
later of no one's as fleet as foot as the Tuatha on
Mm-hmm.
because they're used to walking and running away from danger. It would have set that up that they had run
And
miles.
remember, their ancestors are shared ancestry with the Aiel. Yeah,
Yeah,
so they
help.
would have been good runners.
Yep. Um, so that would have been simple, and I don't understand why no one thought of that. It's almost like, well, we have the wagons still, so we might as well use them. I don't know if that's what happened or if they thought, well, people might not remember if we don't have the wagons. You had the recap at the beginning of the episode,
Mm-hmm.
and we have Ilya and Aram right there in the front. We know who these people
Yeah.
are.
And you could have just had Perrin say, well, he does say, I wish he would have used the word tinkers because that's
Mm,
what a Eamon's Fielder would have said,
mm-hmm.
but it's still, he says it out loud. You didn't need the wagons, which make no sense there. And the fact that
Well,
the,
because he has a relationship and a respect with them, he could have called them. It's the Tuatha on, huh? Tinkers, you know, to because the Emmons Fielders are going to go, the hell's a Tuatha on,
yeah.
you know, so which would have additionally helped set up one of the other good scenes later between Ilya and Perrin when Perrin asked them to, if things look bad, take our children and go.
Hmm.
Um, it would have helped reinforce that even though he doesn't agree with the way and can't follow the way, he respects these people.
Hmm.
And has good reason to because of what they did for him. Um,
So before that, we got to go back to the kind of the opening to it where Maxon is teaching the Eamon Fielders how to how
Oh
to
gosh,
line up
yes.
and everything. And I was like, okay, this is good. This is a good use for him as the warder. But I'm just still screaming, where is Tam? Now I
Yes.
know they put in a little thing at the beginning of this season that Tam is escorting parents' family somewhere.
Oh,
But
I completely missed
I
that.
completely missed it till I saw it in an article and then I went back. And there was an
Okay.
offhand just comment about that, which, is again not book accurate because parents' family should be dead. Which if you
Yeah.
read the books, this is probably why we cognitively missed it, is it's an offhand comment. And you have the apple orchard scene where they talk about
Yes.
burying people there. So your brain, if you read the books, automatically assumed his family is buried there.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah. So yeah, that's supposedly where Tam and Abel are, theoretically. But why?
Yeah.
So he can have his family back? Well, we don't need that. We need him to be you're keep using the word berserker when you're talking about Perrin as the showrunners. You need him to not only have killed his wife, you need his family to be dead. You need him to have no strings left in the two rivers as their lord.
Mm. Yeah. Yeah. Um, but also it's one of the things that connects him even stronger to home is that this is all I have left.
Hmm.
My family, all of it, extended family even, except for like, third cousins are all gone. All I have left are that is one of the reasons he has such a problem with the Wolf Guard is
Hmm.
because these are the guys I grew up with. Some of them are younger than me.
Hmm.
I have no family left. All I have are my friends.
Yeah, and what are the two kids that were helping him in the blacksmith?
The Alcenes, Will Alcine
Yeah,
and
they're
his
supposed to be his
brother.
age, but they're
Yeah,
not. They're
yeah,
supposed to be his age.
yeah. Um,
So in the casting, I don't care about the race swapping at this point. It doesn't even matter because we have no cohesive system for
well,
these
exactly.
lands.
It's the
But at the same time, I do have a beef with the age. They should have
yeah,
been his age. They should have been his peers that are all of a sudden looking up to him, and that is where part of the mental crisis comes in.
yes,
We
yeah,
needed a scene with Sen actually asking him for advice. I think actually the actor playing Sen is pretty good.
yeah,
There were some decent scenes. There was a little quiche with the longbows. I think they could have done that better, especially since they
yeah,
didn't showcase why a longbow matters anyways and shown scale as far as the distance of the shot.
yes,
They went
yeah.
for the cooler scene of it knocking a Trolloc off his feet. You know that
That was one of the things you lose with the Mountain Pass thing is one of the points here is the distance that they can kill with their longbows.
and all you needed was a comment of in that scene with the spear, him saying, "Give me a longbow any day." They won't even get close to the barricades. And then you could have had them picking them off, just right away over and over and over again. And then the horde just being able to break through.
And you still have what you had in the book, which is, eventually either there are so many of them they reach the barricade or you
Mhm.
run out of arrows.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. You could have had a 3-minute scene if you know how to pass time
Mhm.
with your camera work, where it's like morning, they're shooting, Trollocs are going down, and it's noon, and they're shooting, and Trollocs are going down, and the sun's
You can
coming
have
down,
kids,
and it's shooting,
runners.
it's
We
shooting,
we
and all
need
of a
more
sudden one of them
arrows,
reaches
and
in a quiver, and there's nothing there. And another one's like, I'm on my last one. You could have had a little 3-minute scene that passed the
mhm.
time like that, and then had still the big battle because the horde was so much. And you
Yeah.
wouldn't have needed a horde
Well,
because you're
and
you're
that
you're doing it
you
vaguely.
could have timed that with the what we were complaining about and we'll rant about a little bit later with the scene where Alana goes down again. And
Yeah, she takes a lot of arrows through the heart for someone who's still alive, but
yeah. Um that was a spear sized arrow through her lung, but I'm sure she's fine. Um
well, she is fine because the girls came through again.
again, yeah.
The
So
heroes.
where was my brain? Oh yeah. Oh crap, we've lost our Aes Sedai. Give the Two Rivers people their due for crying out loud and also make it and we're out of arrows. It's okay, now we're really in trouble. is
Hmm.
we have both of these things have happened, and now we're at our, kind of second act low
And
point.
even in that training scene, you could have set that up with Maxon saying, "That's great, but what happens when you run out of arrows?
Yeah,
Keep
yeah,
practicing the
yeah,
spear. You
yeah,
already know the bow. Keep practicing the spear."
yeah. And they've been there long enough that he should know the reputation of it
Hmm.
and know what it can do. Um, but also one of the problems, even when they do bring out the longbows, is their own ideology gets in their way. And this is one of my little rants here too: is, oh, Daisy Conger can channel because of course she can, because everyone can.
Hmm.
There are no there are no stakes because there are no limitations on anything or anyone.
Hmm.
Notice how even the women in the line there with the longbows, the bows are the exact same. Sam, would you like to explain physiologically what the draw strength of a bow means?
I've got three bows behind me. If it wouldn't get us canceled, but by me showing them one, I've
Yeah,
got a 100 pound draw bow behind me, and I have a 50 pound draw bow behind me. I could show you the difference.
I have read that a Welsh longbow, the pinnacle of the technology, was anywhere from 150 to 200 pounds draw weight.
Okay. So this is not knocked. So, but I'm gonna grab one of them here.
Oh, that's a good one. Oh yeah, that's not the compound bow, that's the recurve bow. Fancy.
Oh.
Okay. So,
Okay, so you just said 150 pound draw weight. This is a 100 pound draw weight, and it's a recurve. And I don't know if I can get the label to come clear on the
mhm.
camera there, but this is made for killing bear.
Hey,
So
Ideals, do you have one of these?
this recurve is made for killing bear, and that's at 100 pounds. I
Yeah.
so yeah, the difference there, and so I mean, reality makes fantasy stupid, right? Uh, but only when they do stupid things. Because in the book,
Hmm.
why was the longbow important? Because they could reach the edge of the woods before they could ever be shot back on. What happened in the show? They let them get close enough that after they released, the other guys got to release. And all of a sudden you had the, Last Kingdom shields, put it up. And some people died because they didn't have enough shields to cover everybody when these dark friends with little bitty short bows were able to hit them at the exact same distance because they waited for them to get to that distance. So
Hmm.
it took the whole point of the longbow out of the equation, which is distance.
Hmm. Yeah.
But it was cooler to see a Trolloc be knocked off his feet by an arrow.
Yeah, so much of the action. This episode is pretty much all an action episode. I mean, it's
I mean, with the longbows, there was no reason to leave the gates.
mhm. Um, I mean, I liked okay, actually, this is another one of the one, here's your gold star, but here's the asterisk beside it. The mountain pass idea that we just praised, we now have to take back, because when Perrin is laying out the plan, they don't actually do it.
Yeah.
The idea was, and this is, historically true. There are, you defense in depth is actually a technical term that is used in the study of military strategery, and that's what he is explaining is a classic defense in depth, and then you don't actually see it. To your point about the scene of them running, like using their bows and running out of arrows, slowly giving up ground to not let the Trollocs get close to them, but also as their defenses get overrun, get torn down, and they're slowly backing up. Okay, and now you're looking over your shoulder and there's the gate back there. We're almost back to Emmons Field. We're almost out of time, and we're out of arrows, and our Aes Sedai got knocked down, and now we have the oh poop moment, right? So so you show us this setup, but then you or you tell us this setup, but then you never show us this setup. Um, mu- you know, much the same way of my next note is actually when they unfurl the banner and
Okay, so that's
Fael's,
where I was. Yeah, we're actually rewinding from the battle. So yeah,
yeah.
when they unfurl the banner, and this is as we brought up, as we talked about at the beginning of this episode, I said banner was rushed, no lead
Mm-hmm.
up.
Mm-hmm.
They just unfurl it and
Mm-hmm.
him go, oh, I don't want it.
Fael's speech to him about it is a very good adaptation of what she says in the books,
Hmm. Yeah, I'm
and it is
actually happy
completely hollow.
with her casting and what they've
Yes.
done with her so far.
Yeah.
She has that Hollywood, this is what a strong woman should sound like, where she overemphasizes every syllable. But other than that,
But I don't
she's
know how
been pretty
much of
good.
that though
Her
is her
accent,
English.
yeah,
Yeah,
because she's Italian, right?
yeah, she's
Yeah.
an Italian actress, and so how much of that is the language barrier? Because she emotes very well. Um, her physicality is good.
Hmm.
She does a very good job um acting what how people like Moiraine and Egwene are described in the books, where
Hmm.
Jordan describes them as seeming taller than they are, even though they're very diminutive.
Yeah, except I do love that she is so contrastingly tiny compared to Perrin
That
because
was actually one of my notes that I
yeah,
skipped
it
over
makes
is,
it yeah, the
yeah.
scene where they're talking and she's about up to maybe mid chest level on him.
And then when Bane and Chiad come in too, and she's she's
Yeah,
about the
yeah.
same to them, I'm like, that this is actually one of the reasons I always thought this should be animated, because then you can actually have the height the way it is in the book. It's hard to do because you don't see that in a lot of the other scenes because too many of the other actors and actresses are just too tall.
Yeah, she's the girl you borrow the hands for the dick pic, you know.
Anyway, moving along. Speaking
I
of,
guarantee you whoever had the comments that hated those kind of comments isn't here anymore.
well,
So
then just wait
and if
until
they
we get,
are, I am just antagonizing on purpose. So if you're still here,
yeah.
that was just for you.
Well, it's not going to be our fault in a second because we're about to get to Loyal playing Maiden's Kiss. But
Yeah,
before
yeah,
that,
but they explained why he did it.
that,
Yeah.
yes, yeah.
And
So
that was okay because it fixed a wrong from earlier in the season.
yeah, I that was one of my notes where I said where it was a WTF, and then a few lines later, oh wow, okay, no, you actually set something up here and
Hmm.
then paid it off well. Speaking of setup on payoff, not well. Okay, in much the same way that I was ranting at the beginning of the season, uh, about Rand and Egwene and how you had the faux drama and broke them up, and then you brought them back together, and it's okay, well, how you're gonna have to break them up, and how are you gonna do this, and what's this gonna look like? Same thing with Bornhold and
Mm.
Perrin, that I have been in the back of my mind grumbling about, and now's the time because Lord Luke finally shows back up after he is completely. I kept waiting for him, and it was all just pad and feign. Is no, he's the one leading the Trollocs. I was like, well, why do you even have Lord Luke if you're not going to use him? For one, but two, so he shows up with Bornhold, with Dane Bornhold, younger Bornhold, to do what Perrin said of, hey, look, you help us, and when the Trolloc threat is done, I'll turn myself over to you. That was a pretty good scene,
Yeah, that was a good
except,
interaction. Yeah. Well,
except,
except sins of the past.
mhm,
Perrin could not be the one to have killed older Bornhold
exactly.
because this relationship that they're going to eventually progress here cannot happen if Perrin is actually the one guilty of
No,
doing the deed.
I didn't rewatch two, but didn't wasn't Dane there? Didn't
Hmm.
he himself
He witnessed
witness
him
Perrin
doing it. Yeah.
killing the elder Bornhold? And
Hmm.
so that is why my exact note is, how the hell is there any reconciliation when Perrin actually did kill Bornhold and it was witnessed?
Hmm.
You there's no getting over that. And the scene at the end of, violence doesn't stop until someone says enough. Well, this isn't violence. This is not even retribution. That would be justice of,
Hmm.
hey, you killed my father. I'm going to try you and then I'm going to execute you. there you don't get over that
And
just
even from
because,
a
oh well, we're on
revenge
the same
arc, it
side
is
now.
the most understandable revenge you can think of.
Yes, Perrin's the bad guy here.
Yeah, we praise John Wick because someone killed his dog, and
Well,
we're
and the more I thought about it, the more I realized, wait a minute, it's the scene from the British comedy. Are we the baddies? Is
yeah.
the the white cloaks were charging in to attack the Sanshin because the Sanshin are really bad. The white cloaks were the heroes in that moment, and that was one of the many problems with season 2 is that climax was so clunky that they completely flubbed the idea that, yeah, it's the white cloaks versus the Shanshin and we're caught in the middle.
Hmm.
It's no, we're actively fighting. Oh, anyway, so back to the setup and payoff. Okay, I understand you're trying to set things right here, but you screwed it up so bad in the first 2 seasons. Some things just can't be set right. And well, yeah, you killed my father, but let's let bygones be bygones.
Yeah, you almost need to reverse Child Byers' role, who was the guy who
Mm.
handcuffed him in the credits. That it was
Uh,
Child Buyer is the one who handcuffed him to be basically Galad from book 12. Yeah.
I, I
And
mm,
and and or Galad to come in at some point and oh, but it was self-defense. Bornhold cannot judge you because it was his father. But the problem is we don't have Galad gone from the tower yet. Child Buyer has to be the one at this point. But
because they're
Buyer was
fast.
also there, and
Be,
Buyer was fighting the people Perrin was fighting back with.
I'm actually going to jump to the end because
Yeah.
it's relevant now. Is because they're fast forwarding things. I was genuinely, and because they make things so cheesy and quick with so little setup, I was actually expecting them to steal Galad's moment from, is that the first Sanderson book when that happens? I think.
I
Yeah.
think so, yeah.
Yeah. I was actually expecting them to steal Galad's moment there and have Bornhold declare judgment right then and there of you fight the shadow with all your might. That is your sentence.
Hmm.
Because, all right, yes, you did kill my father, but you're clearly no dark friend with the way you fought against. And he also Bornhold had the revelatory moment that Galad has later. Only with Galad, it's oh.
Don't count that sentence out.
I mean,
Be-
that could still happen. That could
because
still be their
we do have the
plan.
scene where they're fighting side by side against the
Yes,
Trollocs.
but
And so
not just against the Trollocs, but against dark friends in white cloak garb, which
mhm,
could have been an eye-opening moment for Bornhold of, oh, we're not as pure as I thought we were.
yeah, so don't count that scene out. You might have predicted the beginning of season 4, right? But
I still don't think we're gonna get a season 4, but yeah, that may be what they're trying to set up. Who
well,
knows?
one of my overall impressions from this episode with the way they played it out was I think behind the scenes they know they have a season 4, but they know that that's the last season. There
Mm,
were a lot of things done in this episode that gave me the impression that they're one more and done
hmm,
because a lot of things were accelerated. Even
hmm.
Valda's dead. That was one of my notes.
Yeah, yeah.
Just to have him be fried right there lets me know we're not going to have the White Cloak arc, right? Uh, with
There was
Morgase.
also the line from Alana to the girls about, no, we're not going back to the tower. The pattern has bigger plans for us, which
Which
almost
means that she's
seems
just getting him ready for the last battle kind of thing.
which almost
Yeah.
seems like a miniature acceleration of the tower split to me is as well of where we're um perhaps foreshadowing the tower split because the tower's a at this point in the books the tower is a still a big effing supposed to still be a big effing deal.
Hmm.
um I did get mad when Loyal said let's play Maiden's Kiss. I was like, who the hell is this Loyal and why are these writers so freaking sex obsessed?
Hmm.
um but which put a pin in that because I want to talk about that when we're done with the season about sex obsessed and yet this the sex is all so passionless. There's
I
no
was going to say shallow.
intimacy
Same,
there.
same word. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Um so it's an odd thing about modern millennial writing that I'll rant about in an epilogue episode about this season.
Well, I don't
But
know if I was torn on if the actor and actress got it pulled it off, but they were going for like post fight passion
we, we talked about
with
this,
Alana and
yeah.
Maxon.
We talked about this a couple of times through the book series. Is there are moments, similar such moments in the book series, because hey, we could be dead tomorrow. That
Hmm.
actually kind of gets the libido going.
Hmm.
The we need to pass on our genes chemicals start to kick in,
Yeah.
which that the my sex obsessed, kind of got undone here in a minute when we actually get to the maiden's kiss. But in this moment, it gets reinforced because, as you said, we immediately switch to Alana and Maxim,
Hmm.
and not only are they doing their whatever, but again, back to our big gripe about those two is, whose story is this?
Yeah. Well, and this is one of those scenes I put a note of sins of the past because okay, put it in a vacuum. That scene, put Alana's story in a vacuum
Mm,
and Maxon's story in a vacuum, and that scene made sense because they needed a scene where they finally got over Ivan a little bit
yeah,
and they worked together better. And
yeah.
as we know with couples, sometimes the sexuality plays out in the makeup sex, right? That kind of
Hmm,
stuff.
hmm,
And it was makeup sex to not only get them back together, but get over grief, get under somebody to get over somebody, kind of thing.
hmm.
Which sounds bad, but even in death, eventually someone's got to break the ice. Like say you're a widow or a widower,
Or
there's always an
parents
ice
that
breaking moment, and the fact that they should have had that relationship continued anyways, but they couldn't because there was always someone else there. So from a relationship
mhm.
standpoint, that was an okay scene in and of itself, and it's an okay story arc if they were the main characters. But to your
Yes.
point, they're not the main characters, and it distracted screen time from the entire story.
They have the arc, they have the romantic arc that we never get with Fail and Perrin.
Yeah, because Perrin killed his wife. We just
So
get them having like playful, almost having sex, and then Alana and Maxon ruin it because they
yeah,
walk in.
yeah, yeah. Um, but this
You
scene
know,
also,
this is how bad I think the showrunners are and the writers. When Maxon and Alana walk in on Perrin and Fail, I almost expected them to ask to join in.
yeah, I can't remember if we said that while we were recording last time or afterwards, but yeah, I also had the what they have set up with those two, the sorry to interrupt, it's no, the most logical thing for those two characters to say is,
Is to get
want
out
us
the
to help?
camera.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. But there's another moment in this scene that I almost forgot about, that is a another great example of how there are no stakes and nothing has weight in this show. Much like how we're about to see Alana get almost killed again, but be fine, is the talk about turning the bond off. No, no, no. In again, we're not just being nerds here. The source material matters because it's good. You can mask the bond, but it takes a lot of effort. It's not perfect, and not everyone can do it very well. Why? Because the Warder Aes Sedai bond is supposed to be a big effing deal.
Yeah, not only a big effing deal, but something so big that the Forsaken comment on it of how did we
Yes.
not know about this in the Age of
Yeah.
Legends?
How,
We were so much more
mhm.
advanced than them, and they figured this thing out that is really cool.
How did these they look at the people of this age like the kids from the Lord of the Flies. They're savage children, right? And yet they figured out something we didn't. How'd they do that?
Hmm.
And yet, on more than one occasion, because this goes back to season one, which we ranted about at the time, is now I think Lan actually uses the term mask at the
Hmm.
time, but they make it much more um like a switch of, no, he's just blind. And if you can just turn it off and on, then what's the point? Much like with oh, Daisy can just channel now.
Yeah, but see, here's the nuance that the writers don't understand. The purpose of the water bond is to have a person that protects you from yourself.
That's a good point.
And what do we see in the male female relationship is the what they call the patriarchy in a relationship is you have that person who not only is willing to, but is strong enough to say, no, I'm
Mm-hmm.
going to say yes almost every time. That look at them, even the most, well, not most, even in very traditional uh, patriarchal relationships, the male concedes almost every time. But there are the times where it's like, no, you can't do that. We can't
Mm-hmm.
do that. The kid
Mm-hmm.
needs to grow up. You can't spend money on that. I
Mm-hmm.
know you have this feeling going forward, but we can't do that right now. And that's the way it works, and that's where balance lies.
Speaking of nuance, this was a thought I had as well with the, oh, look, everybody can channel now, is you could have mitigated that with what is in the source material for you to use, which is wilders have blocks.
Hmm. Yes.
So
And I think actually in hindsight, looking back, there is implication that Daisy might have been able to channel. And it was very vague, and you kind of
yeah,
it
yeah.
fell under the umbrella of Varen and Alana having that Aes Sedai mentality of not taking on wilders that are over a certain age.
And here you could have had it. Do I have to stop drinking? And you could have had it to where Daisy can only channel if she's drinking. You could have had
Yeah.
it. There was a slight implication here at the very end that the girls need each other.
Hmm.
They can't channel separately.
Except they ruined that by having them together when they were trying to heal
Yes,
her that first time.
exactly,
Yeah, yeah.
exactly. Is um they were together when they healed Alana. You could have had her trying to coach them individually and it wasn't working and she couldn't figure out why. And then not had them together until they kill Valda and they join hands. And that would be very symbolic of joining hands. So you see the physical
Hmm.
connection there too.
Which, if
So
you've ever been married to a twin, which I can attest to, that would make perfect sense as a block.
mhm,
Yeah.
mhm. Well, and yeah. Anyway, uh oh,
Uh,
then we, speaking of the romantic arc that we don't get with Fael and Perrin, is then we switch to Fael and Perrin talking in the smithy, and it's I don't know if they were trying to pull in some of that scene from The Dragon Reborn that I've been ranting about. Where the hell is it? Because they should have had it at the beginning of the season, but it's another one of those moments that's just completely hollow.
mhm.
Uh, about I think this is the scene where they say, "Oh, this is so dumb." If they wanted a general, they would have Alana, of course. If they
Mhm.
wanted a warrior, they would have. Does she? I don't remember if she says Maxim or somebody. They want you because they know you and they trust you.
Mhm.
Again, we haven't seen that. One of the few times I actually mentioned
Well,
his
part of the problem with that
storyline.
scene was that should have happened before the Trollocs got there. Because in the middle
Yes,
of battle, why are they taking this time to have this
yes.
you should be their leader discussion where he's just watching people die around him and going, I don't want to
Oh,
lead
oh
the
no, that's
city.
later. This
Yeah.
this is the scene before that. This is the
Oh,
scene that cuts in between the hey, want to play Maiden's Kiss, sexy
oh, okay.
time with Alana and Maxim, and now we have Fael and Perrin. They don't get sexy time, they just get to argue, which I guess is accurate to the source material. And then we cut back to Loyal um and Bane and Chiad actually playing Maiden's Kiss. But it it should have been a good break between those two scenes, except that, again, the words are right, but there's no meaning behind it because you haven't taken the time to set this up. Um, but again, credit where it's due. OMFG. the Loyal playing Maiden's Kiss scene actually made sense and was good world building ish. Except that my asterisk on this is they seem to be replacing Gaul with Loyal, which is kind of asinine.
Yeah, they took care of that at the end. But uh so my last one on Maxim and Alana, since they were kind of the subject of the last few minutes, is again, we have another gray area with the water bond that they just, I think they bit off more than they can chew because now we need to accept this as something that can go forward. Did you notice they talked to each other through the bond?
Yeah, they kind of do.
No, when he
Yeah.
basically messages her to rain down ice and fire or whatever she did. She,
Yeah.
because he does this and then she does this and is like, "Oh, I got the signal."
Yeah, that was a little too, yeah.
You know what we you could have had him fighting and things getting desperate and her feeling the desperation because that would have been more accurate.
Yes.
It is a distinction with a difference, not a distinction without a difference. She can feel his feelings.
Mm-hmm.
And if he had been getting desperate, she says, "Okay, now I need to step in. He's getting overrun." And she could have just said that out loud. She could have just orated that.
Mm-hmm.
"Bond with me. Maxim's getting overrun. I feel the desperation." Boom.
Mm-hmm.
There you go. There's your line.
Yeah. And you didn't even need it because you have already established the longbow and we see them later shooting fire arrows. Someone could have just shot a fire arrow as a signal.
Yeah, I like how they broke out the Molotov cocktails after it was already too late.
Yep. 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 Yep.
You know, after they already busted through the gate, let's go ahead and start
Mm-hmm.
throwing the things we should have been throwing at the people trying to bust through the gate. But you
Mm-hmm.
know,
Um,
now I did in that battle scene, I think they did a good job. Remember, we talked about in our analysis of the books, you brought up how Jordan so masterfully described the women's circle going into the battle as fighting like
mm,
a pack of
mm,
wolves.
mm-hmm.
And they actually did that. I thought that someone was paying attention.
Yes. However, I have an asterisk for that. I agreed with that too, except I also have an asterisk there, which is, but again, it has no impact because you have had so many girl boss moments that even Bane and Chiad here, we kind of you know in their moment when they go to the Waygate with Loyal to help him close it, that should be awesome. And it's like, well, yeah, but we've seen so many girl boss warriors already that
Mm-hmm.
it's not special.
Yeah,
Um,
and I think scale plays into that too, because if you just make the numbers game so unbelievable, I think it takes away from the story. And what was it like 30 people against Loyal and the two ladies? Okay, you
well,
know,
uh, and again, much like the, all right, you tell us about this defense in depth and then you don't show us when they're watching, Bane and Chiat are doing the hand talk and being and scoffing at how unobservant they are, of how they don't have scouts, they don't have proper watches, they're all bunched up too close, and then they just run out in the open. Let's see some,
sniping or
desert
something. Yeah.
desert ninja coolness here. And then while they're what the heck is going on, then Loyal bum rushes them while they're all discombobulated from the desert ninjas killing them from the shadows.
Hmm.
And they just they no, well, we're just gonna run straight at them. Sure, why not? Whatever. Um, I lost my train of thought because we went around in a circle of the awfulness. Oh,
Okay.
oh, so we brought this up before of the um because we're getting to the scene where Alana gets hit.
Okay, good.
And what I wanted to mention about that too is where did those arrows even come from? Who was attacking
The
them?
woods
And
behind them that was
and then it
yeah.
just stops. It's like, I thought you were setting up on, oh, we're screwed moment here because we're getting attacked from both sides, and it's no, we get some giant Trolloc arrows from enemies we never see.
Yeah, and
Daisy gets
this is a
killed, and
scene I
then we're done.
expected to see Lord Luke because he would have inside information of the defenses.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, we get a glimpse of him. Maybe the others don't, if you're still trying to set up the mystery of
Hmm.
who is this guy and that he's a bad guy, so that we, the audience, go, oh, hey, wait a minute, was that guy? You could have done that. And then, you know, actually shown us who was attacking them. And if it was a very small force, then Daisy kills enough of them before she gets killed, and Luke retreats
Hmm.
because he did what he came to do. Um, but the other problem with this scene, besides oh no, Daisy got killed. Why? Alana's fine. And I don't remember if we brought this back up because when we were texting afterwards, and you mentioned, and I had completely forgotten about, because I mentioned, hey, did they just kill Samael? And you mentioned, well, it wouldn't matter because remember Lanfear from season 2.
Hmm.
It's death is treated so lightly here. Death and wounds that should be mortal are treated so lightly here that there's just no, well, wait, is Daisy dead? Mm,
Oh.
maybe she's fine. Maybe the girls fix her up after they fix up Alana.
Well, my point with Samael is I personally think they established that if you are bonded to the Dark One as the Forsaken are,
Mm-hmm,
that because he's the Lord of the
mm-hmm.
Grave, you have some special protection that allows you to,
Yeah.
she just basically T2'd it, Terminator 2'd it and came
Rather
back together.
than going through the soul transmigration thing that happens in the book, which, I can understand that because you don't want to go swapping actors too often. When you have cast someone, you don't want to go
Mhm.
recasting them,
Except it would have been their perfect time to have a trans character, but
but whatever.
whatever. It is what it is.
I'm not sure we're even going to get there.
But you're right with the Daisy Conger thing because if channeling itself semi protected you from immediate death, like the water bond does in the books, is well, why didn't Daisy have the same chance as Alana?
Hmm.
Because she obviously was pretty powerful. Do you see the shield she put up?
Hmm.
She was obviously not weak in the power, so why didn't she wasn't she afforded the same protection? I've spelled out how the Forsaken would have a different protection, but we don't have the same unless Atlanta turns out to be a dark friend, the same special arrangement that would help that would make Alana more special than Daisy in that moment.
Hmm. Um, then we get the scene with the Tinkers running through the woods, and there's a Trolloc chasing them. Um, I thought this was kind of weak,
Hmm.
and it shouldn't have been because
Cam should have been
this,
there a long time ago teaching Aaron how to use a sword, and it
yeah,
shouldn't have been a just I did the right thing in the right moment, which
no, yeah, there was no choice there. There was no. I'm done with the way of the leaf. I'm tired of watching my loved ones
mhm,
die. Aram made an active choice.
he made a reflexive choice,
Yes.
which the later scene where his grandmother is not wanting to make eye contact and stuff with him makes less sense
Hmm.
because everybody makes mistakes.
And all you had to do here was, oh no, Aram, what have you done? Put it down,
And him
which
saying,
is what
no,
she
I don't want
says.
to. Yeah.
Exactly, which is what
Yeah.
she says in the book. Just again, borrow from the source material. That's what it's for. And just transfer it to here, where instead of taking the sword out of the barrel, he's holding the Trolloc sword, and it's no, you know, this, I'd be dead. This baby, this infant that I'm carrying would be dead. I'm done with the way of the leaf. And then it would have actually had some impact in the moment. And to your point, the much more important epilogue scene where she is sitting there in the square and she can't even look at him.
Hmm.
And
Yeah,
it is such a shame because we kind of skipped over again one of the good scenes,
well,
which is
it's
Ilya and
inconsistent too.
Perrin in the inn.
Hmm.
That was a really that was a very powerful
Which
scene.
makes it inconsistent because if
Yeah.
Perrin could find the way of the leaf, why could not a kid, basically Aram is a very young
Yeah.
male adult who acted in a moment in a very male way, protecting a child and himself from a monster, not be forgiven?
I think this is, and another note to expound upon later about millennial modern writing is they don't seem to understand nuance and they seem to be
Hmm.
uncomfortable with gray because one of the reasons that the books are so good is because Jordan is so good at playing in the gray. Is they're both right, they're also both a little bit wrong in that moment when Ilya is panicking almost of no, I can't lose you too, because to her, Aram picking up that sword he is every bit as dead as his mother Ilya's daughter is now.
Hmm.
And
Well, and people lose the contrast why Aram was such an important character in Jordan's series. And I don't even think we touched on this in our book analysis. We just had the flashback of Rand as his ancestors,
mm,
and they're justifying the spear because
yeah, that's a good point.
the spear can be used for other things. That's why they justify it. Although they made it a complete combat spear that is not good for hunting.
I
But
hadn't
Aram
thought
picks
of
up a
that. Yeah,
sword.
I hadn't thought of that before.
And so he is the tinker that has a sword, which is even the Aiel did not go so
Yeah,
far as to
that
pick up a sword.
that is this is why we love the books and why we reread them so often is how many times have I read, I've said before, The Shadow Rising is probably my favorite of the whole series. And how many times have I read it and not picked up on what is a very subtle but very powerful bit of symbolism by Jordan there?
Well, and also add to that, so layers of the onion. Perrin's struggle with the axe and the hammer the whole time he's with Aram
Hmm.
is the same struggle as the Aiel with the spear.
Yeah.
And it can only be used for killing is the axe, the one he has. It's not even a wood chopping axe. The one he has can only be used
Yeah.
for killing. The hammer can be used for building and killing. The spear can be used for hunting and killing, and battle. Aram picked up the sword, only good for one thing,
Hmm.
only good for the battle.
And he becomes obsessed with it, that that's all he
Well, and
has
it's his
is the
downfall.
sword.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it is kind of a very big meta story of what it means to, and this might be something he had as a soldier. He probably saw people become addicted to killing. The old Full Metal Jacket. How you kill women and children? Easy, you just don't lead them as much. That kind of thing.
Hmm.
Where these people were so traumatized by battle that killing made them happy. And Aram went down that path because the sword represents that. Whereas
Yeah.
the axe and the hammer was a representation of the battle there. And the Aiel as a culture was a representation of resisting that in their own way.
Hmm. Yeah. Um,
Well, and in this show, you could even take it a step further. It's not only a sword, it's a Trolloc sword. You could have him becoming the beast that Perrin resists becoming, and actually have a good little storyline contrasting that we didn't get because we skipped book three.
yeah.
You could
Yeah.
combine Aram and Gnome.
Eh, yeah. Yeah. Um, do you have any thoughts about the Cawthon girls killing Volda?
My note was, and Valda dead, just like that.
Yeah. I mean, it, my only thought was, well, at least this was one of the few things they set up of when we first meet him, he's creepy
Well,
as
I mean,
heck
he
and
he did
played
kill
very
their
well.
mother.
And the first time
Yeah.
we meet him, he's burning an Aes Sedai alive at the stake, and he
Hmm.
does the same to their mother. And then he gets,
Burned
you know,
alive.
he karma comes for him, and it is a bitch. Um, so at least there was some sort of payoff there because of that setup. But like I ranted about with the women's circle and Daisy and everything else is, yeah, but the coffin girls doing it doesn't have the hero moment you want because we've just seen way too many girl boss moments, way too
Mhm.
many. I can suddenly do something amazing that I have no foundation, no preparation, no training for. I just do it.
Yeah, so for those that are out of the country, let me explain a little bit of the game to you. There's a game here called Bunko that's super popular. I don't know if it's around your area as well, but my mom plays it, my sister plays it, a lot of my clients here play it. Basically, it's rolling dice. It would be like kind of like Matt's dice, but you have a time component to it. So you're rolling dice, and whoever gets the most points wins. And everybody keeps trying to get me to join these bunko circles, but I hate it because it's only luck and chance. There is
Mm-hmm.
no skill.
Mm-hmm.
Invite me to a poker game. Yeah, there's a lot of luck to it, but there's also skill to it. So you play, it's a mixture of luck and skill. Risk of the board game, a mixture of luck and skill.
Yeah.
All of these things, the greats, Monopoly, the one that's broken up probably more marriages than any other board game ever.
You just got to get creative with how you play
Yeah, it
it.
is a mixture of luck and skill because yeah, there is skill involved, but you also have a dice roll.
Yes.
Bunko is
Yeah.
no skill. It is
Yeah.
just rolling dice and being superstitious. That's what I feel like when I see
Mm,
when the moment happens, you'll be able to do it.
yeah.
No, we needed more training scenes with Alana with the girls. We got a little bit, but we needed them to at least be able to get the source, but they hadn't gotten that far in the training scenes. We
Hmm.
needed, more pair in training with Lan earlier in the series because now all of a sudden he's so badass he can kill hundreds of Trollocs, right? We needed these things. A little bit of Max in training the Two Rivers folk. Okay, that was good because we needed it.
Hmm.
And we didn't get that to the extent that it was needed for the girls to just go, oh, we're going to kill you.
And instead, what we get are things like something we kind of skipped over here because you brought it up earlier. There are two scenes with Fael and Perrin in the smithy. The first one when he tries to send her away, and then again in the middle of the freaking battle where he's having a crisis of confidence. And it's like, why are you giving us the same scene twice? And it
Mm-hmm.
makes absolutely no sense here because they are in the middle of the effing battle when at least they ended it pretty well of him taking up the hammer and
Mm-hmm.
but then also the stay behind me and are you trying to
Which,
protect me? No, just
which
get the
remember
ones I
my
missed.
beef about the White Cloak fight was that
Yes.
she was the front and center. They did
Yes.
it right in this scene where he was the front and center and she was playing cleanup,
And then
which is actually a
yes,
throwback to the Saldian way of doing things.
that's a good point. Yeah.
And so I was like, okay, so again, someone paid attention. There
Mhm.
is someone in the writing room paying attention. I
Yes.
don't know who it is. If anybody knows the writers and can figure out who this one person that may have read the books is, that's fine. But yeah, it was they would have him front and center, the focus on him beating something up, and then the focus would he would still be front and center, but the focus would just pan back to her, and she's hamstringing something that he missed. And it was like, okay, that's what I needed in that White Cloak fight. That's perfect for right here. And so someone did a good job in that one, but it shouldn't have been that scene to begin with. So there's the asterisk.
Well, we also, once again, that should have been the culmination of an arc of
Mhm.
them coming together. And instead, we get the Alana and Maxim romantic arc, and these two are an afterthought. So it also had less impact because of that.
Which time spent on that could have been used with him trying to deal with the woman circle and having trouble and Fail coming in on the back
Eh,
end and doing, that would have
that's a
been
good point.
another thing because that was very pivotal in how the his kind of rise to lordship happened was because she took care of the things he wasn't good at.
Speaking of the women's circle, notice they bring up the women's circle a lot in this season in the parent scenes. Where the hell's the village council? Where are the men at all?
Mhm.
As I mentioned, where the heck is Bran? Marin does everything. We
Again,
never
it's
see him
implied
again.
that they're the ones that saved the Perrin Barra
Yeah,
thing.
yeah,
Yeah,
okay,
and they're
whatever.
all off doing their thing.
Moving along. Um,
But Bran's the dark friend though because he's a skinny innkeeper. So just keep that one in mind as we
Oh,
go into
geez, I
season
forgot
4.
about that. Speaking of lack of impact, what did you feel about Loyal's self-sacrifice?
Uh, I'm a wimp when it comes to movies and shows, so I actually had a little tear there. But it was a tear that I felt horrible about later because it was a good scene in isolation, but I hate what it implies for what's going forward. So it actually was one of the scenes that pushed me to my conclusion that they've got one more season and they're done.
There were a couple of times where I was getting emotional and realized it was because of the scene reminding me of the actual scenes from the books that still, no matter how many times I have read The Shadow Rising, when I get to this climactic moment in the last chunk of Perrin's story arc there towards the end, it is still moving. So I kind of just rolled my eyes of, I mean, my note is, did they just fucking kill Loyal? Dot dot dot. Yeah. But again, we don't know because they treat death so lightly. For all we know, someone's gonna find him. He's gonna fall onto you
Another
know,
path in the ways.
another
Yeah,
path in the
yeah.
ways, or what? Who the hell knows? I did feel something at the end
When they're
when,
reading his words. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, well, and
because
and
the
that's what I think they use it as a tool for because we
yes,
need some way for Perrin to come around to being the leader, and I thought that's where they were going till he surrendered himself here. But it was something that could have been impactful for him to say, it isn't just about me. If Loyal can make this sacrifice, I can sacrifice this and be the leader I need to be.
I
And
don't
that's what I thought they
remember.
were going for.
Yeah. My biggest problem with it though is, again, is that was moving because, one, I've read the books and I love Loyal, and two, the actor has a great voice. I don't know if this guy has done voice work for animated stuff and video games or whatever, but he has a great voice, not just, you know, the depth of the voice, but he reads his lines very well. He puts,
Well,
you
did you
know, the
notice they changed his whole face for this season?
no, I didn't.
He's very woody now.
Hmm.
If watch that episode again, look at his face. He's very like bark skinned.
Yeah.
Whereas in the first
Huh.
season, remember my comment was he was like a Rastafarian Ewok.
Yeah.
He looked like a
I'll have
giant
to go and
Ewok in
look.
the first season,
Um,
and
but
so yeah, they did change his whole face.
I don't remember the second season well enough because it was so ick for me. I hated it the whole way through. I remember that much, and I really hated the ending. Um, did we get enough Loyal to justify this level of emotion though? Because we certainly didn't in season one.
Hmm.
I don't know if anyone else out there, Scott Ideals, if y'all watch season two and remember it well enough. To me, again, this self-sacrifice had no real emotional impact within the series. It was only because you killed off one of the fan favorites. I mean, yeah, it was a good moment because he does do something
Well, and
epic.
so to be more book accurate and have a similar effect, we don't have Gaul here. So in this scene in the books, it was Gaul and Perrin, not
Uh-huh.
Perrin, Gaul and Loyal
And
that went
Loyal.
to
Yeah.
close the Waygate. We needed him to do the job, but one of the girls, Bane or Chiad, basically almost die. But I don't think the writers could do that because you would have needed Loyal to save them.
Mm.
You would have needed them to be desperate in battle, him to do the job and come out and be like, holy, you know, we need to, and then come in and just go ogre berserker, which, in the books, they did a good job that was a switch they could flip,
Hmm.
you
Hmm.
know, and just go at it. And basically he could have double fisted, we had him carrying Gaul across the field. And that I think was the moment you talked about that it was actually Perrin's sight that helped with because they
Yeah.
thought Loyal was
Oh
a
yeah,
troll
yeah,
lock.
yeah,
But he's like, no, it's no, 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 it's not a troll lock.
yeah.
Uh, so he's carrying Gaul. He could have been double fisting, carrying both Bane and Chiad across the mountain pass in this case.
Yeah.
And two rivers folk like getting ready to knock an arrow, and Perrin be like, no, 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 stop.
Well,
But and one of them almost die in the process.
mhm.
And that would have been more proper to the books, and we would still have Loyal. But again, in my theory that this is the last season, we needed a moment where Loyal's words affect Perrin in a way that wouldn't be if he's still alive. If he was still
Well,
alive, he's just preaching to him.
you
If
mentioned
he's
that you
reading
had
his words post hoc,
a thought of where they were going to go with, because then we end with Bornhold writing up and saying, all right, are you going to be true to your word? And Perrin does turn himself over, unlike in the books, because the White Cloaks this time did actually fight. He turns himself over. So where do you think they're going with that?
bold prediction just came in my head just this moment. So Rand ties up in the next episode, ties up the Aiel arc. Beginning of next season, he takes Tyr, and it's obvious that he's the Dragon Reborn, and the nations come together. And on Perrin's side, he's the one that brings the White Cloaks to the last battle. He is Galad in
Hmm.
the next part of the arc.
But how the heck does he convince Bornhold not to kill him?
Like you said, it's something similar to okay, so technically it was self-defense, but it was my father, and you are guilty of the crime. Your sentence to death is to be fighting Trollocs till you die, kind of thing.
So give Bornhold the Galad line.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, like I thought they were going to do here, but I think they are trying to set up. I'm assuming we're not going. I'm assuming we're done with Perrin.
Well,
I mean, we almost
for
have
this
to be
season,
because there's
for
only
this
one.
season, yeah.
There's only one episode left, and we have two storylines.
And
We
I
have,
don't think they give him a whole episode of nothing else but him if they're not done with him.
yeah.
And so we got three basic stories that are coming together. Well, maybe four if you count the White Tower. But we've got Rand bringing the Aiel in. And we're going to end up in Tyr, which is going to unite the nations. We've got Perrin and the White Cloaks, the Two Rivers, all of that area. And also bringing in the Saldeans, because don't forget about Fael, right? Bringing in Borderlanders. And then we've got Mat, who they put in Tanchico already. And he's going to bring the Seanchan in. And so we're going to have
gosh, you're right. Yeah.
We're going to have three storylines all come together for a big season finale, season 4.
And you had said that you thought they were combining Tanchico and Ibudar.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay. That would be quite the fast forward.
Yeah. Well, I think they're going to help the fast forward by shipping Alana down to Tanchico/Ibudar because Maxon wanted them to go that way. Remember, they already teased it. And the girls are going to go with them, which are Mat's sisters. And so we're going to combine a lot of things right there. Bring in Nynaeve is going to have her. I think they're going to give Nynaeve her badass moment in this next episode against Mohidian. I think that's going to play out.
Speaking of badass moments, my last note here, that blacksmith scene in the middle of the battle, that actually could have been useful if they did what I thought they were going to do, which is when Fael says, what would you, she says something to the effect of, what would you give for the Two Rivers? And Perrin says everything. Well, what's the one thing he hasn't done yet this whole season that he's afraid to do?
Call the wolves.
I thought he was going to call the wolves.
Oh, I missed that. Yeah, okay.
I thought instead he grabs the hammer, and there's some symbolism there because of the dead wife stupidness, but really, and that was all of season 2 was him becoming the wolf brother.
Yeah, and because they haven't set up a whole lot of it yet, I have a feeling that's going to be just like one of those throw-ins in the last battle.
Yeah.
Where he's going to be like, they're going to be kind of desperate, and he's just going to be like, wait a minute, I hear it. Maybe. And then the wolves come out of.
I didn't comment on it. I don't remember which episode
it was. The trained huskies are going to come out of nowhere there.
Was it the Coffin Girls, or somebody asks him about his eyes in this season, and he says, I'm a wolf brother, and explains what it means.
That was Fael.
Okay.
That was in the scene where she ended up jumping in his lap.
Yeah. Okay, that's right.
Because
So
remember, in that same spot in the books, that's when he tells her.
yeah,
So
that's
that
right. That's
exact
right.
scene that's supposed to match the place in the books is when he tells her. But it was so, again, it was one of those, just like the banner. There was no setup to it. There was no any of
But
this.
he tells her he's a wolf brother and what that means. You have the wolf banner and you're in a desperate moment. And all of season two was, I mean, that's when you finally introduced, homeboy that you left out of
Elias, yeah.
of season one is okay. Well, now we finally get Elias. We finally get a mentor, but it is something he's not too sure about. And you don't do the wolf dream. You still could have had him call the wolves for help.
Hmm.
And again, they are supposedly, allegedly, they were combining books three and four, and instead they have just ignored book three. And what happens at the beginning of book three?
The wolves come in to help, and he uh forces the Shinerans to bury them
Yeah,
with respect. Yeah.
yeah, and and
But
it
we would have
also
needed Uno for that, and
it also would have made the ending make a little more sense because now it's not just you killed my father, it's no, I still think you're a dark friend because you called wolves to
mhm.
battle. That's unnatural witchcraft.
Well, okay, so this is where I might slightly disagree with that ending there is because we just talked about it. The mountain of evidence that Perrin's not the bad guy is there, and
Mm-hmm.
Bornhold saw it with his own eyes. But he
Mm-hmm.
also, because with the sins of season two, saw Perrin kill his father with his own eyes.
Mm-hmm.
So this scene does make sense in a sense of I am still arresting you and I'm going to do this.
Yeah,
And so we have to have a moment, and let's see if the actors can pull it off, of this is not right, but I want to do it.
that's
And
true. That's
and
true.
so if they can pull that off, I will recommend them. I
Well,
don't, you
and
know,
to their credit, if that's what they are setting up, when he does show back up after initially rejecting Perrin's offer, and Perrin asks, "Why did you come?" and Bornhold says it's the right thing to do.
mhm.
So to their credit, they do seem to be setting up Bornhold with some kind of an arc of, yeah, I don't wanna, and you're not my friend, but it's the right thing to do.
Yeah, and this is where Bayer has to, I think he's the one that has to take a character change from the books
Hmm.
because he's got to do something like slap the brandy out of Bornhold's hands before the trial or something. You know,
Yeah,
hey, are you a child of light or are you a drunken, vengeful little boy? That kind of thing.
yeah,
So we need somebody to do it, and I don't think there's anybody else set up to be that person, unless we all of a sudden get Pedro Nale in the mix, which
yeah.
would be just throwing something in there. But
Galad suddenly shows up just because he's supposed to be there.
which I mean, the problem with that is that would be the best way is Galad have the same kind of arc and do that, but you can't do it in one more season. And I really feel like they're fast forwarding because this is the next season is the last season.
Yeah. I I'm dubious. I'm dubious it'll happen, but I'll go looking up after we're done with the season. I'll go digging around and see if there are any rumors or confirmations or have they even started filming yet.
So
But
so
the
the sad thing for me is, as bad as the first two seasons were, the way that some things turned around in season three,
Mhm,
I want at least two more seasons because two more seasons would be the minimum to correct.
mhm,
Where one more season would be we're just wrapping it up.
mhm. Yeah, we need to put a bow on this because we're done now.
Hmm.
Yeah. Well, we'll see. We didn't get any of our questions from last time answered because this was all Perrin, which it needed to be for this what is supposed to be epic moment.
Hmm.
So those questions that we had last time of wait, where are you going to go from here after how you had Rand and
Yeah, and
and
this it's so crazy because even though it's not book accurate, I'm just so hoping Rand kills Couladin. Because
mm,
we didn't say it on air last time. My prediction is Avienda kills Couladin. And I think they
Yeah.
set that up with her fight with Land. And
And also coming in with the fiery magic spears to attack Samael when Samael had knocked Egwene and ran down and was
mhm.
about to kill Rand, and she jumps in to slow him down.
I mean,
Um,
we could have Matt come in on a portal stone, kill Couladin, and then go back and do his thing.
Good, jeez.
That would be so
Sure, why
contrived, but at
not?
the same time, I'm like,
Um,
I needed at least something. I
I'm
need my Matt. I need the Matt that I love so much. I hate Matt in this series, which is
yeah.
one of my okay. So if I'm so negative on this thing, it's because my favorite character is the most butchered.
It's why I ranted so much about Perrin in the last episode, is because you are butchering what not just was my favorite character for a long time, but my favorite arc is not just in this series, but in fiction. One of my favorite arcs is Perrin from book 3 to 4. Is just a magnificent that this is why this series is so incredible, is because you take Perrin's arc in book 3 and 4, and that is an epic fantasy series by itself from
Mhm,
any other author, and it's just a relatively small component of this 14 book magnum
mhm.
opus.
Which I think is why the slog became the slog is because
Yeah,
you can't outdo what you did with him so early.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Which, go back and rewatch those episodes if you want our thoughts on that. But we will. So speaking of predictions, my closing thought here, before next week and we see what they actually do, because of how quickly they they had Rand go, "Oh, you're the people of the dragon," because how they kind of snapped that moment into existence, and with setting up the stone at the beginning of the season. I'm not going to be surprised if they actually end the series into the next episode with Rand going, all right, I'm the Kara Karn. And instead of the fight in Ruidin that he has, he says, all right, now let's go to Tyr. And they end the season with Rand leading the Aiel and taking the stone.
Yeah, that would definitely fast forward my timeline prediction. And you could also have Samael as leading the stone instead of being the king of Ilion or the
Mm,
Gregor being the one of the council members of
yeah.
Ilion. So
Yeah.
you could combine that where Tyr and Ilion are kind of one place and have Samael be his enemy there who's alive again because rocks don't kill you if you're forsaken, just like
Nothing does, apparently.
slit throats don't kill you if you're well,
Yeah.
Balefire kills you.
Well, also, I don't remember if we said while we were recording, one of our predictions was that, and we'll get to see next episode, is that Samael is going to take the place of Asmodean in from the books, and
Mhm.
he's going to be captured to teach
I
Rand.
actually hope that happens
That would
because
actually make sense.
that would make sense and it would give Rand the tools he needs to be who he needs to be by the end of the season
Hmm.
versus I just did the right thing because I knew it, and
That would be a good adaptation of
mm,
source material of, okay, we can't do this because it's too much. How do we condense?
and you also can have Robin be the big baddie in that situation because we're already setting Robin up to be actually more important than Samael. Samael
Mm,
comes in and attacks, and he has this moment in this meeting, but Robin has been the one that was front and center for a lot of this
yes.
season. And so you can have him getting the Aiel, getting Samael as a weapon, going and killing Robin, but Samael dies fighting Robin. That would be a good way to do it. And then making his way down to Stonatier.
Mm,
So,
mm.
that would be a very believable. I don't think they can do it in one episode, but I think him getting the Aiel and getting Samael to end this season would set you up to be able to go right in on Ravine, or no, go in on the Stone of Tyr, and then the only obstacle to have him having the nations is Ravine in Camelin. So then having that be kind of the big arc before the big battle
Oh,
for the
geez, I
last
just had
battle.
another thought of
But they
something they
did
could
bring up
do.
Semireg exists.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we have to, kind of, but you could take care of that with the Matt Elaine. Nynaeve
So
arc.
you just brought up Robin, and I'd kind of forgotten about him, even though we just brought up Robin, and I'd kind of forgotten about him, even though we praised the actor and his portrayal, but then we haven't seen him for so long.
Mhm.
Um, they are combining a lot of things, and Nynaeve needs to have her girl boss moment fighting Malkidian. The way they have made it so easy to pull someone into the world of dreams with you, are they going to combine that moment, the end of, are they are and have somehow bring that together of the scene at the climax of Fires of Heaven,
Mhm.
where Moghidian and Nynaeve are in the world of dreams, but instead of fighting Raven, fighting Lanfear. Is that how they're going to have the end with Lanfear? I wonder. Is
I think Lanfear is going to make
going
it
to,
to the last battle.
yeah. You don't, are you, well,
I think they're going
Moraine.
to play the desperate redemption arc with her to the
Mhm.
last minute, to the very last minute.
Well, but I've been wondering how they're going to do the scene at the docks in Karheen, or if they're going to do it at the end of this season.
No, I don't think the Elfin and
I mean,
Aelfin
because,
will come into this at all.
but they have set up Moraine's death. I mean, that has been a major part of this season
Hmm.
with Moraine and Rand, is what she saw in the rings.
Okay, so this just popped in my head. Even though they've teased Matt being hung, remember why Matt is no longer the Hornblower in the books?
Yeah,
Because he's struck by lightning, but it's reversed when Rand kills Robin with Balefire.
Balefire, a big
So
haunted part
Nynaeve
of it.
is
Yeah.
killed by Robin, and Rand kills Robin with Balefire, and Moiraine comes back. They combine the "you died but you came back"
Oh,
of Matt's story, who's not in the place he needs to be for that to happen, with Moiraine.
have they mentioned Balefire in the series?
Not yet. But I
Yeah, I didn't
think
think
this is
so.
something that could come up here because we're really getting close to a lot of Forsaken fighting, you know.
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
so Rand may kill, maybe he kills Cooladin with Balefire or something, and Moiraine gives him a lecture on how that's not good, you know.
Because, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, my morbid curiosity remains. I can't wait, air quotes. I can't
I'm
wait to
you
see it.
know, it's just I again I always preach the old BF Skinner, give credit where it's due so that way they keep doing the good thing you want,
True. True.
teach people how to treat you, right? And
Anyone who's
they've
ever trained a dog, it is
yeah,
so much easier and so much quicker with positive reinforcement.
yeah. And so they have done better this season, and the points where they haven't done well, I think a lot of it is because they were basically hamstrung from the first two seasons. So
Hmm.
again, if they continue in this direction, I hope it keeps going on, and I hope some of these cool things happen
Yeah.
that we just talked about. Uh, but at the same time, if they say, "Oh, okay, we made them happy for a second," and they go back to stupid shit, I hope it gets canceled. So
Yeah.
again, I'm happy to say I was happy about some things. We put a lot of asterisks on it in this episode, but there was only so much they could do
Yeah.
in a lot of places. I do like what they're doing with File and Perrin, even though it's rushed. I do like, okay, even the end with Aram, where they're like, "Hey, this is how you can stay, and it makes sense." Where they're like, "Hey,
Yeah. I'd forgotten about
you
that
mend
part.
pots, can you be a blacksmith?" Then we can have him have personal time with Perrin because of that. That
Yeah.
kind of
Yeah.
things. So it's, we don't know where it's going to go. I'm not overly confident, but I think if you asked me after last season if it's going to get better, I would have said no. If you asked me after this season if it was going to get better, I'd say 20% chance. So that's at least an improvement, right?
Yay. All
Yeah.
right. Well, we'll find out as far as this season goes next time, and we will see y'all. Wait, hold on. What's no. We'll have to figure out when we can do because next weekend is Easter weekend. So I'm gonna be out of town and busy.
Well, let's just do a twofer on Wednesday and I'll post it on that Saturday.
Well, the episode doesn't come out until Thursday.
Oh, that's right. Okay.
Yeah.
We'll figure it out.
So we'll have to see when it actually becomes available and if we can have time. But I am looking forward, mostly from your morbid curiosity, but I am actually looking forward to this episode, watching it and talking about it, seeing what actually happens, if any of our predictions are even partially correct. And if you've got predictions, let us know of where the heck you think they're going with Rand's with the storyline in the AO Waste and the storyline in Tenchico, and how they're going to wrap it up this season.
You might be right. They might bring them together because they saved them both for the last episode.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right.
Okay.
Well,
Well, we'll
we'll
see you
see y'all
later.
next time.